This is an example of preview within Crafter Studio. It is both in context and fully functional, so you can browse around using the navigation, you can test features, everything in preview works just like it would on the live site. You can also preview on different channels. So this is an example of previewing on a smartphone here, and you can see that you can easily use the site within the smartphone. You can also flip the phone on its side, and that works across different channels. You can also have different types of phones, different sizes, and so on. Another way to navigate your content within the CMS is through the sidebar. So here, if we open up the pages structure, you can see our information architecture and can easily browse from one page to another through this method as well. And all of these panels can be easily moved out of the way to give yourself more real estate when you're browsing or editing your content. Now, if I want to edit my content, I click in context editing. That turns on these pencils. I can just then click on a pencil and make a change to the content that that pencil is associated with. So here, let's just change this title. Okay, and then let's scroll down and change this other title here. Here is a content form. You can see you have different control types for different types of content, whether it's an image picker or a rich text editor. Content behind a pencil maps to the specific site that you're editing. Now we've made our change, and remember that we've done that in a safe authoring sandbox, so no content can be made live without first putting it through workflow and approving it. But as an author, before I do that, I'm going to want to preview it in the various channels, and here you can see I think that maybe this text is a little bit too long, so I'm going to change that. So editing works in the various channel previews as well. Let's go ahead and save that, and we can see here it looks a little bit shorter and much nicer on the smartphone device. And once we think that looks good, we'll go ahead and look at it on the desktop view as well. Now that we like our changes, we may want to have somebody review the content outside of the CMS, and for that, Crafter has a concept of staging, which is a waypoint before live. So I can publish there, somebody can review it in that site, and then I can move it forward in the workflow. Now let's say that the feedback from that executive review is that this text should go back to the original text. Well, Crafter has a version history for that, so I can see every edit that I've made. And here you can see the previous edit where I had the Crafter Cloud platform, and you can see it in a red and green comparison. So I can see what's been added, what's changed, and I can easily revert back to that older text. Now let's go ahead and add a new page to the site. So to do that, I open the sidebar. I find the place in the information architecture that I want to add the page, and I select new content. Then I choose a template. Let's start with maybe this single page template. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is look at the content model here, and I can see that the only required fields are the URL and the internal name. And so I have complete control over the URL, as you can see here. And that also is good for SEO. And I'm going to put my nav label in, and the last thing I'm going to do is say that I do want this page as part of the navigation, and I'm going to go ahead and save my page. Okay, now Studio takes us to the new page, and you can see the page is in the navigation, and I can already browse from one page to another here. I'm going to go ahead and edit that content, and I'm going to change the position of the page. So just using drag and drop, I can reorder the page in the navigation. So I moved it to the first position, and here we see that page in the first position. Crafter also gives me complete control over the navigation, so let's change this from my new page to just new page. Crafter also makes it easy for authors to take pages off the site with a disable feature, as we see here. If I click that simple little checkbox, the page shows up in preview with a disabled banner. But if I were to publish it, the user gets a 404. I can also set expiration dates. So if I want to create an applicability window with my content, I can do that as well. Now another question we get is, how do I build pages based on components? And here you can see a drag and drop capability in Crafter Studio. And you can see if I open up drag and drop or page components, I get a list of components, and I can browse for existing components, or I can drag new components. And as you see here, I've started dragging new sections onto the page. So let's add that section for About Us. And then we're going to add another section. So you can see here, I can just figure out where I want to put the content. I can actually nest one component in another, and in this case, decided to put them just directly under each other. And we'll create a section for our mission. And then we're going to go ahead and create a third section. So grab another section component, drop it. We're going to put that right under the other two components. Let's call this one Our Community. Okay, now you can see I've built a layout of 3 sections, and I'm going to start by putting some components inside that. So we'll start with a 1-column row. There's nothing to fill out here, so I'm just going to click Save. And now I've got my row. In addition to that, I'd like to add a 2-column on top of that. Okay, and again, there's nothing to fill out here, so we're just going to click Save. And now you can see my layout. So I've got inside that one section, I've got a 2-column and then a single column. Now I'm going to drag a rich text component into one of these sections here. So let's drop it here in this single column row. Let's put some text there. And this is a rich text editor, so we can actually format this text. Let's go ahead and just set this first line up as an H1. Okay, save and close. And now we see our text in that single row. Okay, now let's add a panel into the first row. And here you can see this is a panel component, so it has its own specific fields that support that component. So mainly just a headline and some body text. Okay, and now we see the preview there of that component. Now let's add a promo box. This is another component with yet different fields. They're similar, but they are going to render differently based on the component. So we're going to add a headline, add some text. Now we're going to change the type to an icon highlight, and then scroll down and choose an image. And here, instead of uploading a new image, I'm going to choose an existing image. Now let's say save and close. We'll leave these other fields blank. And here we see the preview for this component. Okay. Now another thing you can do with components is you can reorder them with drag and drop. So if you want to move things around, you can just pick them up, drag them where you want them to go. When you're done, you can turn off the drag drop mode and see the page as the user would see it. You can also check your multi-channel preview and make sure that your responsive design looks good. Okay, this page looks great, but one thing we did was we added sections, and we don't see those sections on the page. And so what I'm going to do is change the template type. So here I'm going to choose Change Template, and then I'm going to choose the left navigation template type. So I'm changing from a single column to a 2-column layout, and already I can see that I've got my navigation dynamically built for me for each of my sections that I created. And I have an additional drop zone in this template where I can add new components. So let's go ahead and add an image component here. Just drop that. And we're going to go ahead and select an image, and we'll select an existing image. Select the image we want, save our component, and we see our preview. So Crafter makes it really easy for authors to build their pages and their layouts with drag and drop. Editing content based on a page that was built with drag and drop is just as easy as editing content anywhere else. You simply turn on the pencils and then hover over the content that you want to change and click the pencil to edit that content. So here we can see the different components that we've added just by clicking on the pencil for that specific component. Now let's move our page in the information architecture to another location. So we're going to right-click on the page within the sidebar and select Cut. And then we're going to find our new parent page, right-click on that, and say Paste. And this will move the new page under the pricing page. And because our navigation is a single level, that new page comes out of the navigation. Let's say we want to keep the new page nested, but we want a vanity URL at the top level to that lower page. In that case, we're going to create a new page of type redirect. This is a way to create a vanity URL or a friendly URL. So I'm going to go ahead and create that new page. I'm going to give it a URL. So let's just choose something simple like a vanity URL. And we'll keep the internal name the same, so something obvious, my vanity URL. And then we're going to put the redirect URI to the location of the new page, which is under pricing. Let me go ahead and click that. So you can see that this redirect will be at EN, a vanity URL, and it will redirect to EN pricing new page.